My stepdaughter treated me like I didn't exist on her wedding day. After years of raising her, supporting her, and loving her like my own, she chose her biological father, a man who barely showed up, to walk her down the aisle. She passed me without a glance, like I was nothing. But when the flowers wilted and the bills arrived, suddenly I mattered again. They remembered me, not as family, but as a wallet. Too late. I was already long gone. I've been married to my wife, Lena, for more than 2 decades now. When we first met, she was raising her daughter Chloe on her own, just 5 years old at the time. Chloe was a curious little kid, full of energy, with this infectious laugh that could brighten anyone's day. I still remember the first time I laid eyes on her. She was chasing after a paper airplane in the park, clutching Lena's hand as they walked toward me. Something about that moment just clicked. It felt like I was looking at my future. Right from the beginning, Lena didn't hide anything. She told me the truth about Chloe's father, Jason. The guy was a flake. He'd pop in and out, always with empty promises and cheap gifts. He'd show up randomly, usually around birthdays, bringing dollar store toys before disappearing again. Chloe still lit up every time he came around, though Lena did her best to keep her expectations in check. When Lena and I got serious, she laid it out clearly. Chloe was her #1 priority. And I respected that completely. What I didn't see coming was just how much I'd end up loving that little girl. It didn't happen overnight, but over time, every time she called me, Dad, even when she spelled it wrong in her crayon drawings, it chipped away at my walls. I was there the day she finally learned to ride her bike, after more tumbles than I could count and a mountain of band-aids. I held her in my arms during those scary nights when she had a fever, while Lena ran to grab the thermometer. When her first school recital came around, I sat with her for hours, helping her memorize her poem line by line until she had it down cold. On the big day, she stood backstage shaking like a leaf, but before stepping out, she locked eyes with me in the crowd, just needing that little nod that I was there. And I always was. Jason, on the other hand, was barely even in the picture. He was all talk. Promises of beach trips or brand new bikes, none of which ever actually happened. Chloe would cry when he bailed, and I'd be the one picking up the pieces every single time. I never tried to erase her father or make her forget him. I just didn't want to be the reason she stopped believing in people. And as she got older, our bond only grew stronger. I went to every school meeting. Helped her choose her graduation dress. Cheered like a fool from the bleachers at her games. She called me Dad, and even though we didn't share blood, I knew she meant it with her whole heart. That's why what happened later crushed me. When Chloe went off to college, I didn't hesitate. I pitched in for her tuition, covered her books, and paid most of the rent for her tiny apartment. It wasn't easy financially, but I didn't care. I just wanted her to have the kind of future I never got a shot at. Jason? Same story. He stayed on the sidelines, calling once in a while to say, "Your dad's proud of you," but never once offering help or support. When graduation day rolled around, she ran straight to me, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Thank you, Dad. For everything. I couldn't have done this without you." In that moment, all the sacrifices felt worth it. So when she told us she was getting married to Ethan, I was honestly thrilled. I pictured myself walking her down the aisle, felt like the perfect full-circle moment after everything we'd been through. I never voiced it out loud, but in my heart, I figured that role would naturally be mine. I had stood beside her every step of the way. The weeks before the wedding were filled with excitement. Chloe couldn't stop talking about her dress, the venue, the flowers, the playlist. Just like always, I chipped in. I helped pay for part of the reception, covered some dress costs, and pitched in on whatever else she needed. I didn't do it for recognition. All I hoped for was to be seen, just acknowledged for the role I'd played in her life. Then the invitation showed up. I opened it, smiling, expecting to see something personal, maybe a line that said, "Walk me down the aisle," or something that showed I mattered. Instead, my name was buried in a sea of formal guests. Nothing special. Nothing at all. And then came the real blow. Chloe had chosen Jason to walk her down the aisle. At first, I thought it had to be a mix-up. But when I gently asked her about it, her answer knocked the wind out of me. "There's only one biological father," she said, "and I've always dreamed of giving him this moment." There's no real way to explain how that felt. 2 decades of being there, loving her, showing up, brushed off like it meant absolutely nothing. But what hurt the most wasn't even her decision. It was how casually she said it, like the thought of choosing me hadn't even crossed her mind. Her wedding day turned out to be one of the lowest moments of my life. I showed up early in a suit I'd gotten tailored just for the occasion. I sat quietly in the crowd, trying to smile as I watched Jason escort her down the aisle like some sort of hero. During the toasts, I waited, hoping maybe someone, anyone, would give me a nod, say something. But it never came. I might as well have been a ghost in that room. And something inside me cracked. The part of me that had always been willing to give and give just shut down. I didn't know it at the time, but that moment changed everything. I can still see her clearly in my mind, walking down the aisle with Jason. She looked beautiful, no doubt about it. Every bride deserves that glow. But for me, that scene is forever stained with pain. Not because I didn't want her to be happy, but because I finally understood, I didn't matter. I was just the backup plan, easily replaced. A week later, Chloe and Ethan flew off to some fancy honeymoon, beachfront resort, all the bells and whistles. I didn't ask for details. I couldn't. Every mention of it felt like salt in a wound I hadn't even begun to process. What I didn't see coming was what happened once she got back. Chloe barely had time to unpack before she gave me a call. Her voice was light, cheerful, like nothing had gone wrong. She went on and on about the beaches, how beautiful everything was, and how Ethan had surprised her with a dinner under the stars. I just sat there, listening in silence, answering with the occasional, "Yeah," or "That's nice," doing my best to keep it together. Then the conversation took a turn, and honestly, I should have seen it coming. "Dad," she said. That word still hit me harder than I cared to admit. "I need a favor." Turns out, their honeymoon came with a few unexpected expenses, and now they were a bit short on cash. Could I help cover it? I was stunned. Not just by the ask, but by how casual it was, like she had no doubt I'd say yes. Like it was just another box I'd check off without thinking. I'd always been the guy who fixed everything. The dependable one. The one who quietly made things happen behind the scenes. But something inside me finally snapped. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was just the years of being taken for granted. Whatever it was, I didn't feel like saying yes this time. "I'm sorry, Chloe," I said, keeping my voice calm, even though my chest felt tight. "I can't help you with that." There was silence on the other end. I could almost see the confused look on her face through the phone. "But, you've always helped," she finally said, sounding like she couldn't believe I'd said no. I took a long breath. "Maybe it's time you asked Jason. I mean, he's your biological father, right? Maybe he can step in for once." Another long pause. Then she said, barely above a whisper, "I understand." And just like that, she hung up. No fighting. No tears. Just a quiet click that left the room colder than before. Later that evening, Lena confronted me. She looked at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. Called me heartless. Said I was abandoning Chloe when she needed me most. I told her it wasn't about the money, it never had been. It was about respect. I was there for that girl for over 20 years, I said. And when it counted, when it really counted, she acted like none of it mattered. I told Lena I wasn't going to be the safety net anymore. Not just there to catch Chloe when things didn't go her way. She didn't get it. To Lena, blood was everything, even if that blood was flaky and full of broken promises. We stopped talking after that. The silence wasn't loud, but it was heavy. And something between us just shifted. Chloe never followed up. Not a call. Not a text. Lena told me later that Ethan wasn't happy with me either. Said I abandoned Chloe when things got hard. Meanwhile, Jason. Predictably, the man disappeared again. No texts. No calls. Nothing. Maybe Chloe was finally starting to see the truth about him. But that didn't undo what she'd done to me. That night, sitting alone in the living room, I kept replaying all the moments, every time she called me Dad, with that bright smile on her face. I used to think that word meant something. That it was her way of saying I earned that spot in her life. Now I wasn't so sure. Maybe Dad was just a word she used when it worked in her favor. I don't know if I'll ever fully get over it, but one thing's for sure, this time, I'm not the one reaching out. Because truth be told, I've got nothing left to give. It's been 3 months since the wedding, and even though I've tried to keep my distance, the drama just keeps circling back. Lena hasn't let it go. She keeps trying to play peacemaker, giving me those looks across the dinner table, part disappointment, part desperation, like she's hoping I'll cave and go back to being the guy who never said no. But what she doesn't get, what she refuses to see, is that something broke in me that day. And I can't pretend like it didn't happen. Ever since that call where I told Chloe I couldn't pay for the honeymoon, our relationship has completely faded. No messages. No updates. And yeah, at first, that stung. But now. It feels like breathing room. No more guilt-laced phone calls. No more money requests wrapped in small talk. Just quiet. What did catch me off guard, though, was how quickly the cracks showed in Chloe's new marriage. Of course, Lena stayed in regular contact with her, and one night, over dinner, she dropped it on me. Chloe and Ethan are struggling, she said with this heavy sigh. Ethan lost his job, and they're behind on rent. I didn't flinch. Just kept eating, already knowing exactly where this was headed. Lena kept going. Don't you think we should help them? She's our daughter. I put my fork down and looked her straight in the eye. No, Lena. I'm not her father anymore. According to Chloe, that job belongs to Jason. So if she's in trouble, maybe he can step up. Lena stared at me like I just told her I hated puppies. How can you be so cold, she asked. She's always counted on you. You can't just walk away. I laughed, but it wasn't out of humor. It was bitterness, plain and simple. Cold. You want to talk about cold? Try watching the girl you raised, loved, pretend you don't exist at her wedding. Because that's how it felt. Cold and invisible. Like the 20 years I spent being her dad didn't count for anything. If Jason was good enough to walk her down the aisle, he's good enough to help her now. That ended the conversation. Lena got up without another word and took her plate to the sink. That night, we didn't say a thing. We just lay in bed with our backs turned to each other. It hurt that things between us were falling apart, but I couldn't keep being the guy who gives everything and gets nothing in return. Still, Chloe didn't stay silent for long, even if she didn't message me directly. About a week later, I got a text. Not from her, from Ethan. It was short, but I could feel the desperation through the screen. Hey. It's Ethan, Chloe's husband. I need to talk to you about something important. Do you have time? I didn't reply right away. I let the message sit there, a reminder of how much things had changed. I read it over and over, knowing exactly what he wanted. Money. It was always money. Eventually, I decided to hear him out. I had nothing to lose. We met at a local cafe. Ethan was already there, nervously tapping his foot, staring at an untouched coffee. I sat down without a word, waiting for him to speak first. Thanks for coming, he said finally, though his tone lacked sincerity. It felt more like an obligation. I know things have been tense between you and Chloe, but we're going through a tough time and thought maybe you could help. There it was, the inevitable request. I kept my face neutral. What do you need? I asked even though I already knew. Ethan sighed, staring at his coffee as if searching for the right words. Chloe and I have been struggling financially since the honeymoon. I lost my job recently, and now we're behind on rent. If we don't pay in 2 weeks, we'll be evicted. I nodded slowly, letting his words sink in before asking the one question he clearly hadn't expected. Have you asked Jason? Ethan looked up, confused. Jason? No, we haven't talked to him. Chloe thought, well, that you might help. You've always been there for her. I smiled, but it wasn't a kind one. It was bitter, ironic. Exactly, I said, leaning forward. And yet, when she had to choose, she picked Jason. So no, Ethan, I won't be helping this time. Maybe it's time for Jason to finally step up, for once. Ethan tried to argue, saying it wouldn't be fair if they got evicted, that this wasn't just about Chloe, but about him too. I held up a hand to stop him. This conversation is over, I said firmly. I wish you both the best, but I can't keep solving your problems. I stood up, leaving him alone with his cold coffee and his frustration. When I got home, Lena was waiting for me, as if she already knew what had happened. I didn't give her details. She didn't need them. She could tell I had refused to help. Since then, Chloe and Ethan have stopped trying. Lena is still upset, though she stopped pushing me to give in. But something tells me this isn't over. When a castle crumbles, there's always more debris to come. 6 months have passed since the wedding, and to be honest, these months have been strangely liberating. I've stood firm in my decision not to involve myself in Chloe and Ethan's problems, though it's meant dealing with Lena's constant resentment. She doesn't say it outright, but I see it in her eyes. She still hasn't forgiven me for what she sees as a betrayal. No matter how many times I explain that this isn't about money but respect, she either doesn't understand or refuses to. But the distance between Chloe and me has brought an unexpected relief. For the first time in years, I'm free from the weight of always being the one to hold everything together. I've started focusing on myself again, picked up old hobbies like woodworking, spent more time with friends, things I had neglected for far too long. At first, I felt guilty for taking this space for myself, but now I see it as necessary. Still, the drama hasn't stopped. A few weeks ago, Lena told me that Chloe and Ethan were finally evicted. They couldn't gather enough money to catch up on rent, and their landlord ran out of patience. Now they're staying with Ethan's mother in a cramped apartment, barely enough space for 2 people, let alone a married couple. Lena was furious when she told me. This wouldn't have happened if you had helped them, she said, her tone full of the now familiar blame. I didn't bother responding. It didn't matter what I said. Lena would always see me as the villain for any hardship Chloe faced. What she doesn't realize is that, deep down, I know I did the right thing. Chloe chose to push me aside, and now she's facing the consequences of those choices. The irony? According to Lena, Jason has been completely absent through all of this. He didn't even respond when Chloe reached out for help. Not surprising. He's been unreliable his whole life. But I find it interesting. After all the effort Chloe put into placing him on a pedestal, he's nowhere to be found when she actually needs him. A few days ago, while Lena was cooking dinner, she told me something that almost made me laugh out loud. Chloe says Jason promised to help her find a new place to live, but he still hasn't followed through. He says he's waiting for his finances to stabilize. I raised an eyebrow, looking at her in disbelief. And Chloe still believes him? After a lifetime of broken promises, she still believes him? I asked, not with anger, but genuine curiosity. Lena sighed, looking at me with sadness. He's her father. She said simply, as if that explained everything. That conversation lingered in my mind. For years, I had tried to fill the void Jason left in Chloe's life. But now I wondered, had it all been in vain? Maybe, to her, biology always mattered more than actions. Maybe I was never competing with Jason's presence, but with the simple fact that he existed. A week ago, Chloe finally reached out to me. Surprisingly, it wasn't about money. She sent me a message, said she wanted to meet and talk. I sat on it for a while, longer than I probably should have. But in the end, my curiosity got the better of me. We ended up meeting at this park we used to go to when she was a kid. Chloe was already there, sitting on a bench, her hands fidgeting like she was bracing for something. When I walked up, she stood and gave me this awkward hug. It didn't feel real, just something polite, something forced. I let it happen anyway. We sat down, and for a while, we didn't say much. Just silence, heavy and uncomfortable. Then she started talking, but not about the real reason she asked to meet. Instead, she launched into how hard it's been living with Ethan's mom. The stress in her marriage. How she misses having a place that's truly her own. I just listened. Didn't interrupt, didn't offer advice. I could tell she needed to let it out. And eventually, she circled around to what really brought us there. She looked at me and said, "Dad." That word used to carry weight, used to mean something between us. Now, it just hung in the air, kind of empty. "I know I let you down," she added. She said she didn't realize how much the wedding had hurt me until it was already behind us. I didn't say a word. Just waited, letting her finish. Inside, I was dealing with all kinds of things, disbelief, hurt, maybe even a little anger that hadn't fully faded. Chloe took a deep breath and said it. "I'm sorry for how everything turned out. I never meant for you to feel like you didn't matter." I nodded slowly and replied, not harsh, but direct. "But I did feel that way. Not just during the wedding, Chloe. Every time you brushed off everything I did. Every time you made Jason into something he wasn't. You say you didn't want me to feel like I'd been replaced, but honestly, I don't think I was ever really in the picture to begin with." Chloe looked down. My words clearly hit her harder than she expected. Maybe she thought I'd just take the apology and we'd pretend like nothing had changed. But the truth is, some things don't go back to the way they were. Some cracks run too deep. After that, we didn't talk much more. When it came time to leave, she told me she hoped we could rebuild what we had someday. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want that. But because I wasn't sure it was even possible anymore. What she broke wasn't just my heart, it was something bigger. My trust in her. And then came the part one still struggled to admit, even to myself. I crossed a line. One neither Chloe nor Lena will ever be able to look past. And I don't even know if I should be asking for forgiveness. Ever since the wedding, my relationship with Lena has spiraled into something unrecognizable. What started as emotional distance turned into this massive, invisible wall. Whatever love or respect we had once, it's like it evaporated. Yeah, we still live under the same roof. But that's all we share. A house. Not a life. Since the wedding, intimacy has completely disappeared. At first, I figured it was stress. But as time dragged on, it became obvious, this wasn't about stress anymore. Lena wasn't just upset. She was bitter. She held me responsible for everything Chloe went through. And that bitterness spread like rust into every part of our marriage. The quiet nights, the missing laughter, the conversations that used to come so easily. Gone. Every time I tried to reach her, she backed away more. And somewhere in all that emptiness, someone else stepped in. Maya, Lena's best friend. She was always around before, kind of like the fun aunt. Loud, full of energy, always bringing over fancy gifts and funny stories for Chloe. But after the wedding, she started reaching out more. Calling to check in on me. At first, I assumed she was just trying to help patch things up between Lena and me. But over time, I realized that wasn't all of it. Maya really listened. She told me things no one else would say. She told me I wasn't crazy for feeling the way I did. That I had a right to be hurt. That I'd been pushed aside unfairly. That Lena was treating me poorly. Our talks became something I started looking forward to. She didn't see me as the villain in all this. I'm not gonna pretend this was some plan. It wasn't. It just happened. Like a river carving a new direction. One night, after another long conversation, we were just sitting there in silence, staring at each other. We'd talked about everything. How invisible I'd started to feel. How cold Lena had become. How my whole life felt like it was unraveling. Then Maya reached for my hand. Her voice soft, but steady. "You deserve happiness," she said. "And they're not giving it to you." I don't know what made me move. Maybe it was the way she looked at me. Maybe it was just hearing someone finally say it. Next thing I knew, I leaned in. And kissed her. And she didn't pull away. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed with Maya. We talked for hours. We laughed. We let everything that had been building up finally come to the surface. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt seen. I felt wanted. More than that, I felt understood. I know this isn't right. I know what I'm doing is wrong. But I don't feel guilty. Maya has been my way out. The one person who truly sees me for who I am. With her, I found what I'd lost with Lena, connection. And now, Lena's starting to suspect. She keeps an eye on me whenever I come home late or step outside to check my phone. But she's never actually said anything about it. I can tell Maya wrestles with her own guilt, too. Still, neither of us feels sorry for what we did. Deep down, I know this won't go on forever. Once Lena finds out, there's no going back. For now, though, I don't feel as alone as I used to. It's been 2 years now. Funny how time moves. When I look back, it feels like some storm that passed ages ago, only the wreckage it left behind is still there. I've managed to rebuild parts of my life, though I'm not sure I'll ever fully repair what was broken. Lena and Chloe cut me out completely. And strangely, that set me free. When I finally came clean, Lena's reaction hit harder than I expected. She didn't give me a chance to explain. She walked right up and said, "What is this? I've seen how different you've become. Just tell me the truth." And I did. It all came pouring out. Maya and we've been seeing each other. She was there for me when I felt like no one else was. I'll never forget the look on Lena's face, it twisted from pure shock into rage. And then she said the words that still echo in my head. "So what, none of it meant anything to you?" I couldn't say a word. I just stood there. Everything I had done, I thought it was for our family. But I see now, I failed. "Lena," I said, my voice shaking. "While you were focused on saving Chloe, I was falling apart. And you never even noticed." She screamed, loud and sharp, like it cut the air in half. "What you've done, it's unforgivable. You destroyed us." That's when Chloe walked in. She had already figured it out. Her tone was cold, sharp as glass. "I thought you were better than this." She didn't stop there. "You didn't really care, did you? You just liked playing the hero. And now look at what you've done." "That's not true," I said, my hands trembling. "You all pushed me away. You picked Jason. And when things went south, I was the one expected to fix everything. But when I gave it my all, it still wasn't enough." "Was it?" "Enough," Lena shouted. "None of this excuses what you did." And just like that, they walked away. Told me never to reach out again. It tore me apart. But at the same time, I felt this strange kind of peace. There wasn't anything left worth clinging to. So I moved into a little apartment on my own. The divorce? That was a long, draining process. But the worst part wasn't all the paperwork or lawyers. It was the realization that the life I worked so hard to build was completely gone. Through everything, Maya stayed by my side. She didn't try to sugarcoat what I'd done. But she didn't look down on me either. She became my safe place. The reason I kept going. Months later, just as I was starting to put myself back together, I got a message from Chloe. "Dad, I know I hurt you. I know I let you down. But you're still my father. I'm sorry. Things can't go back to the way they were, but I'll always love you." I didn't answer right away. The pain was still too fresh. Maybe one day I'll feel whole again. But until then, I just keep moving forward, no matter what's been left behind.